Hey, what's going on? Welcome to X's and O's from the Minnesota Vikings team manor outside of London proper. And I'm Paul Allen, joined weekly at this time by Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. And we welcome Kevin to the equation with a scheduling question for you. What are you going to be doing tomorrow night, Wednesday, at 8:10 London time? 8:10 London time, Wednesday.
I imagine I'll be with the fellas doing some third downs.
Okay.
Is what I would imagine.
So that's third down planning.
Yes.
Okay, well, your Padres are at the Cubs in the playoffs at 8:10 London time tomorrow night. Does that excite you?
It does a little bit.
Yeah, you're a lifetime Padres fan.
I just like the fact that, the Padres made the playoffs and Brian Angelico's Mets did not, is what I love the most.
Right, with an epic collapse nonetheless.
Yes, especially after, Juan Soto's career journey took him from the beautiful beaches of San Diego to New York.
The
Yankees
concrete jungle.
on his way to the Mets. So.
Yeah.
I have enjoyed that in a very small capacity.
You, lastly, here on the baseball vibe from the team manor outside of London proper. It's beautiful here, quite tranquil. You need the Padres to beat the Cubs because you guys have the bye next week, which means if they beat the Cubs, I think you can go to a game.
I talked to I've become fairly close with Mike Schilt, the manager of the Padres, and got a chance to spend some time with him when they came out to the Twin Cities a few weeks back.
Sweet.
And, yes, we've that would be something that in the midst of trying to work through the bye and kind of get our guys ready to go for the following week coming out of the bye, which will be very important to us when we get to that time. I have thought about that a little bit.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you think about more than football.
It's very much so just football right now and at this beautiful place, but that time will come.
Okay, to football. Now, I'm going to guess that, in fact, I'm going to say I know. I know these penalties are working on your last nerve, okay? And the crazy thing is the first 3 years under the O'Connell coaching staff leadership, you guys always were top 7, top 5 with like fewest penalties. So, I mean, it's just crazy through 4 games. How do you preach that out of them?
Well, I think, you can't allow any of the factors that might be contributing to those things be an excuse. I don't really if somebody were to tell me, hey, I don't, you've had a couple centers in there, a couple quarterbacks, different cadences, I don't buy into any of that. I think we've got to find a way to execute at a higher level from a standpoint of the pre-snap. And we've had some of the critical offensive penalties that we've seen have been in the pre-snap variety where they come on a 3rd and 6, then all of a sudden you're 3rd and 11. They come on a 3rd and 7, then all of a sudden you're 3rd and 12. It's a screen to Justin in the red zone, and you could be 3rd and inside of 1. And instead you're, a lineman not involved in the play downfield getting flagged for a penalty. So it's some things that we clearly have to coach better, and we've got to get back to our standard of pre and post snap execution. And then some of the things post snap wise, extracurricular wise on Sunday defensively. Where we knew it was going to be that kind of game, specifically with some of the players, on the grass for them offensively, and that's what it's on tape. You see it, and that's part of playing teams that are going to try to bait you into some things when it's that every yard kind of matters kind of game,
like Skoranek and Byron,
and we saw some of that, and I did not like the way we handled some of that. The officials are always going to catch the second guy before they catch the first guy, or vice versa. And we've got to just understand that that's what the 3.5 hours are going to be every Sunday in this league. That's the competition. That's the highest level of it. And sometimes some of those between the ears kind of warfare that goes on to try to elicit stealing some yards here and there, we can't let it happen.
Minus Aaron Jones, you have your full arsenal to strike in the passing game. And at least from my outsider's knowledge of what I see, they're mostly getting open a fair amount of the time. So Fair to say with better protection, the deeper hits will come.
Yeah, I think we've been trying to make a concerted effort to see how efficient we can be getting the ball out to our playmakers, and when we've kind of took some we've took some lumps here when we've tried to push the ball down the field via some of the ways we've traditionally done that, the play pass,
right?
Different ways of trying to manipulate coverage downfield, and we've got to find the balance to still do those things when the time calls for it. And when we do those things, can we be schematically sound to protect with the best schematics of protection we can to help where we can. What's been difficult is trying to, we haven't necessarily gone into the Atlanta or the Pittsburgh game thinking we're going to play our 7th or 8th lineman. So we've gone in with a plan to try to either help in a certain spot where maybe we've got somebody stepping in going into the game, either, thinking about Justin School or thinking about, knowing we wouldn't have certain parts of our offensive line available to us. But then you're reacting on the fly.
Yes.
Still having to block the same folks, still having to, make sure you're accounting for some of the problems along the defensive front and some of the pressures they may bring, but you're also adding a layer of how do we help kind of a new category of player once they're stepping in and trying to play at their best and do everything they can to help us. But, yeah, I think, the facts, even in those circumstances the other day, it was a game where we had to try to go get the game.
Yeah.
And in the process of doing so, you're going to expose yourself to some risk. But in the end, we still had the ball 1st and 10 at the -40 with a chance to go at least get 3 to tie the game, regardless of what it had gone like. And I think that's – look, I have a lot of respect and admiration for the folks that anticipate games going a certain way or going to playing to a certain script. That's just not how our season has gone here early on. But my sole focus, and this about me, is I believe we're going to win the game until the last opportunity has come and gone. And for us, although folks may have thought at certain times in the second half there that football game was headed to being over sooner rather than later, that's just not the case. And we eventually threw for a bunch of yards, and statistically all this stuff that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's, what's the flow of the game and how do we find the best path to winning a football game. We're playing against one of the best defenses in the league this week. We're playing against a physical team. We've got to try to match that, but we also have to play the game in a way where it's a little bit more on our intended terms, not so much on our opponents, and that's what I thought took place in Dublin. I thought we played the game that the Steelers wanted us to play.
Right.
And we still had a chance to win said game, despite losing the turnover battle 2-0 and having a lot more negative plays on our ledger than they did, and penalties. So you've got to find some positives in the fact that when we can eliminate some of those things, it maybe looks a little bit more like Cincinnati than it does some of these other the couple losses we've had, where we've kind of dug into the roster a little bit to try to manufacture 4 quarters where we're dealing with some things. But as I said, post-game, and this about me, I don't view that as any sort of, excuse or any sort of thing that can be a detriment to winning. I view it as an opportunity for that next man to step up and for us to coach at a high level and, put an exclamation point on it.
With Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, I'm Paul Allen. This is X's and O's, a weekly component, 9 to noon. Very fortunate and privileged to have the head coach join us for an elongated conversation each and every week. We are at a manor where the team is staying outside of London proper, and it's quite.
It's bright out here.
It's bright, but it's going from the, not that you got out of town because you're getting ready for the Steelers game, but the hustle and bustle of Dublin, and it was just. I mean, it was like a big-time city. It's on fire in the city and stuff with people walking around. And then here, now it's just so tranquil and peaceful. It's almost like you could take your Surface down next to some 200-year-old tree and, like, crapped up the first 15 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice and peaceful.
It's the same to me. I didn't get out much in Dublin, so
right.
It's all the same to me.
Yes, sir. And off what you were talking about injuries in the game, I mean, in-game injuries, I would imagine, are the absolute worst. And how much is required to change when, say, 2 offensive linemen go down during the course of the game?
Well, I think there's a couple ways to look at it, right? We, T.J. Watt played on the right side. We had a plan to, make his day as difficult as possible. And I got my normal weekly check-in with said, elite pass rusher after the game. He said, I think twice all day I got an open edge to rush. And I said, we're not, we're not going to just roll the ball out there, TJ. We're going to try to make it hard on you. But
that's cool you do that.
When you even, Brian O'Neill's a really good player. And has been for a really long time.
If he doesn't get hurt, you win.
Well, and getting hurt, on a field goal is the hard one for me, just because you wish you didn't have to have a player like Brian on the field goal team, and you had a few more bodies up.
Yep.
But those are the rules. That's what everybody kind of deals with.
Jeez.
But yeah, when you have a drive like that should have ended, with 7 points to start the day, we end up with a critical penalty there, and then take a sack on a third down, and you get your 3 points. And as a coach, you're thinking, okay, there's our 3. We're going to get the ball to start the second half. Defense is going to go out and get a stop. Let's get ready for this next drive. And then all of a sudden you're out, on a knee over Brian O'Neill as he, is being assessed by the doctors. And then eventually Ryan Kelly, as well early on in that game going. So essentially you go in with a group of 5 you think are going to be out there. And we were talking a lot about Donovan Jackson and Blake Brendel stepping in and really being kind of probably where most people's eyeballs were going to be.
Yeah.
And now that's really 3rd or 4th on the ledger as far as
big time
what you're dealing with in the game. And that's in game after a week of preparation. So there are some tweaks and subtle adjustments. And then there's going to be some hard downs where you look at the intentional grounding late in the game, PA. We've got an opportunity there for a explosive one-on-one matchup, where we wanted to go with the ball. And we get beat on a TE immediately, and that's part of the game. They made a play and made the play required to win the game at that point. But you think about what could that have play been like if we find a way to at least give Carson a chance to take a hitch and throw that ball down the field, because we needed a chunk in the moment. We had an opportunity for it, and they made the play to stop us, and that's why they won the game. But you go back through the game over the course of that game, and first and foremost, you evaluate how you called it and the circumstances that you found yourself in, trying to chase that game down a little bit. What led us to being in that situation, and what kept us from being a little bit more consistent. And yeah, you can look at some of the aspects of personnel and say, okay, maybe we'll be better here or there or whatever it may be. But at the same time, we've got to find a way to play the game, whatever's required, to give ourselves the best chance to win. And that might not always equal tell the story in the stat sheet, especially early on in the year here. We're trying to navigate playing our games in some capacity where you look at it, hey, we've probably had about 11 of our original 22 guys that we penciled in reporting to training camp.
Jeez.
And we've probably had we've had 11 of those 22 guys not out there for certain chunks of time. And that doesn't mean nobody's going to feel sorry for us in any capacity. We got to find a way to win those games regardless.
So from the Manor, Kevin met with the media earlier in kind of an on-the-record, chat that wasn't per se a press conference, but you shared some stuff about offensive lineman Brian O'Neill and Ryan Kelly.
Yep.
So for those who missed it, what are the updates with them?
Yeah, so Brian O'Neill has an MCL sprain. We avoided, the real long-term scares sometimes when you see one of those big guys go down with a knee injury. Consider him week to week at this point, and I think we've been blessed with where our bye week is. Don't think short-term IR or anything like that's going to be required. Brian's one of the most elite workers and veteran tough guys that I've been around. And I expect him to be able to, really progress quickly here, use the bye week next week as a real springboard to hopefully see where he can, possibly return coming out of that bye, week to week from there. But I think we avoided, a serious injury that would keep him from returning this year. And then Ryan Kelly did, he's in the concussion protocol. He's feeling pretty good, all things considered. And The one thing I mentioned earlier is I do feel very strongly about where concussion rehab is now. From a standpoint there, it is evolving and changing over these last few years. And from a medical side, I think we can feel pretty strong about the process Ryan's going to be a part of and working his way back as well. But we obviously want to be smart with a player with head injuries and things like that. So something we want to be smart about, and we're going to put together a really good group, a group that we think gives us the best 5 out there for not only what the Minnesota Vikings want to do, but what the Cleveland Browns present defensively as well.
All right, so say you wanted to work out some street guys. Like, do you have to fly them to London and meet them at Piccadilly Square and run down the street or something?
Yeah. So we anybody that isn't on our practice squad currently, we've got to fly in, and they're not exactly local unless they've decided to somehow take a vacation, to Europe while we're over here. So it is the same process it normally is. It's just you're not flying them to MSP, you're flying them to one of the 3 airports here and getting them here as fast as possible.
Kevin O'Connell, X's and O's, 9 to noon, FM 100.3, KFAN, and also you can watch it at Vikings.com. Xavier Scott, he seems to be gaining confidence rep by rep, and now he's making guys miss and stuff like that. Is his best current asset in the passing game matched up against certain linebackers? Because he just worked number 6 last game.
Yeah, and that's where we were trying to, he drew a penalty there late in the game, but if he gets a clean release and doesn't get hooked right there by Patrick Queen, he's going to have a chance early in that possession to probably cross the 50 with the ball, and then you're not only thinking about 3 points there, you're thinking about, can we just go end this thing right now? And we were that one play away from doing that. We had another opportunity that I was talking about a little bit earlier, a couple plays later, where we took the intentional grounding penalty.
Yep.
What Zay brings is he's got a natural feel of route running and catching the football, and then he's an explosive athlete. He's got some receiver background in his football journey. So we're going to try to use him in the traditional sense. He's electric with the ball in his hands and kind of has helped us absorb the loss of Aaron Jones with his skill set. And then knowing we want JP to be that kind of bell cow, all down kind of physical presence, downhill runner that he is. So Zay's brought something. He's brought something to the table. It's why he's here. It's why he made our team. And we saw that potentially being a real opportunity for him throughout the course of 17 games this year, knowing that you're inevitably going to have to deal with injuries. And, we feel very strong about what Zay can bring to our offense.
Kevin, how high-end is Isaiah Rodgers playing for you guys? From the words I've used standpoint, calling the game, watching some stuff, he's fantastic. He just seems fantastic.
Yeah, he's, it's not a surprise to me. It's not a surprise to Flo. It's kind of what we imagined him being. So file that into the category of, I know a lot of folks need to see it to believe it a lot of times, but that was one of the positions that I know I was asked about a lot throughout the offseason, and even after signing Zay, it's what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? That can't be it. And you're in the back of your mind, what's coming if you truly believe in kind of, which I do, Brian Flores and his vision for players. And then ultimately what we saw from a scouting standpoint of where he was at in his career. I'm not surprised about anything he's doing. What I am surprised about is just the momentum he seems to be getting snap in and snap out of. Now we're kind of coming off the playmaking of the Bengals game. Now you're kind of seeing, examples of him being really close to doing that a heck of a lot more than just in that sequence of plays.
Tightening the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and just the consistency factor of it, regardless of the matchup, regardless of who he's lining up across from. And there's going to be some other challenges this week with the Cleveland Browns and Judy and the rest of their skill guys. And I know, Zay's going to be one of the driving forces behind slowing that offense down.
Jalen Redmond, with all due respect to everybody involved, he might be your best defensive lineman through 4 games. What is it from the other defensive linemen you want to see and required to start right now?
Well, I think, there's a level of things go in waves, right, PA? So you want to try to add disruption and an interior pass rush. Well, we still have to be that defense that we need to be on the early downs from a standpoint of defending the run and getting people into these longer yardage situations where the best parts of our defense can come out, whether that's the pressure looks that we bring, the sticky coverage that we have, making them have to get down the field a little bit more to convert third downs, or the the Hargraves or the Allen, the interior rush. But you mentioned Jalen Redmond, and I just want to really highlight the fact that this is a player that is still ascending and just growing on a daily basis. We're just now seeing it happen
right
in game action, and he's showing up, making a bunch of plays. I mean, I feel like every week I could be showing clips to the team of Red making a play, and last week it was the sacks. The previous week, he made some plays in the backfield, affecting the quarterback, affecting the run game. He's showing up every week, and when you talk about him, Grave, J.A., and then you get into Levi and Ty Ingram Dawkins, and you see the depth, and an Elijah Williams even getting in there for some snaps. We feel good about that depth. We just need to see a little bit more consistency of guys being able to set edges, stop the run, allow the rest of the guys on the defense to go run and make plays to try to get the offense into some of those down and distances where they've really got to be concerned about negative plays.
A few more for the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, via X's and O's from this beautiful manor outside of London proper. Carson got banged around pretty good in the Dublin game. Do you find it, and you played quarterback, so maybe it was you too, do quarterbacks become a little, or do they become gun-shy to pull the trigger sometimes when they keep taking hits?
No, I think it's a little bit more not necessarily pulling the trigger, but it could speed you up a little bit and make you decide that I need to throw this thing maybe a little earlier than I want to, or maybe I need to get off of this first or second progression a little bit faster, and it can just kind of speed up your internal clock. Look, the Steelers, I mentioned earlier, playing the game on their terms.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you find yourself with the kind of deficit that we did. And early on in the game, we were kind of able to kind of play it to our terms a little bit. They made some adjustments, and then once the injuries kind of happened, we had to try to find different ways to either run the football or protect in either the play action game or the drop back quick passing game, whatever you want to call it. And they just they made a few more plays than we did, and then we were able to kind of re-tip the scales a little bit later on in our favor, have some explosives in the pass game, move the ball at a good clip, find our way in the end zone and make it a football game. But it was too much of at times things getting away from where we wanted it to be from a game plan standpoint, due to some factors out of our control, but at the same time, what was in our control, that's what we've got to focus on.
A couple on Cleveland here to close. Now it's almost a week here at the Manor, okay, after a weekend in Dublin where you left last Thursday, got there Friday Dublin time, settled in, played the Steelers, now we're in London. After that, you get the bye. So it's no time for anybody to be homesick or looking ahead to the potential of a sandy beach with some off time that's well-deserved for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But human nature also wins sometimes too. So is that on your mind at all, or an absolute non-player with this group?
No, it's my job to make sure I'm communicating that cannot be an option for us.
Right.
And luckily we've got the type of group that these guys are motivated. They're locked in. They genuinely feel week in and week out like they commit to trying to have the best week of preparation we can, because the 3.5 hours on Sunday are really important to these guys.
Yeah.
And, so I think we're going to have a good week of prep. We're kind of in a different world now than we were last week from a standpoint of we have adjusted to the time. We are, we are not going to be on buses all over London. We're going to be here. We're going to be practicing here. We're going to be meeting here. We're going to be eating here. Everything's taking place right here, as if we've just moved TCO right here to Hanbury. And that's where the resources that put together these trips and how we have it set up, it's really designed to be the best possible setting for the player. And there's some things, obviously we're in a different country, so there's some things that are going to be outside of the norm for these players, but what's not is they're going to hear from me on Wednesday what I think it's going to take to win the game in the team meeting setting. They're going to hear from Flo and Wes and Matt Daniels from a coordinator standpoint of how we're going to do it in all three phases with great detail and installation of those plays and concepts. And then they're going to get it in the position room setting with their position room coaching. We're going to go practice it right down by the golf course there on a beautiful field down there. And then we're going to come back and we're going to meet and we're going to do the same process that we always do, regardless of the previous week's result.
Yes, sir.
But there is an urgency and there is an attention to detail required when you know that there are some factors, either previously with the result and the process of travel and all that stuff, or out in front of us with those sandy beaches you speak of, that we just can't allow that to have any sort of a factor in whether the Minnesota Vikings play well or not on Sunday.
I know you and Browns coach Kevin Stefanski have just a high level of respect for each other,
Yep.
and you guys are both really, really good at taking what you have and trying to win the game.
Yep.
The way with what you have is best to try to win. So from a Cleveland standpoint, do you think they want to shrink the game and try to win lower scoring affairs with the current iteration of what they have?
Well, I don't know if they necessarily go into it saying that, but with the defense and the way their defense is playing, I mean, it's one of the best front groups in football, led by Myles Garrett, obviously. But I think Delpit's one of the best safeties in football. They've got two really good corners. I think the linebackers are playing well, but everything starts
that Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham.
Everything starts with them along the front of just absolutely penetration and winning the line of scrimmage and trying to do everything in their power to disrupt the flow of your offense. So you've got to try to find a way to play in that world, but maximize your opportunities without exposing yourself to a lot of risk. And with that comes complementary football. Like, we need our defense to get stops, get off the field, give us more opportunities offensively. And then when we get them offensively, we got to do our job, which is going to be drive the football. We cannot have turnovers. We can't have silly penalties and self-inflicted penalties that cause circumstances to be more difficult by our own doing. And that's what I'm really looking to, get on the grass and coach through this week to make sure we have a great plan to play the game the way we need to play this week to try to beat the Cleveland Browns, and it's going to be a challenge.
You're awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you.
Kevin O'Connell, X's and O's, FM 100.3, KFAN, and Vikings.com.